All right, Strategy Aligned Professionals, we are now officially starting a new month, new framework. And I know I say this all the time, but I'm going to say it again. This is exciting. I'm extremely excited about this, and I'm excited for a number of reasons, which I will be sharing throughout this live call. And so, of course, as always, here's our live call where we're just going to kind of set the stage for our 5 days of implementation. If you're watching this on replay, good news, you don't have to wait. Just get through this and just get right into day one. But for those that are live, of course, we're going to have the opportunity to communicate, interact, ask questions, and whatnot. Anything can happen. Again, I'm excited about this. And so today we're going to be diving into crafting a story pitch idea to gain earned media for your small business. So if anybody's not familiar with the term earned media, it means being featured in the news, whether it's television, radio, newspapers, even blogs that are more industry focused versus being, mentioned in some other random blog that's, could be someone just linking to you for whatever. So we call it earned media because if you had to pay for it, it would be a lot of money, and there's situations where, you might be in a position if you're big enough, or you might have a budget to hire someone as a PR person or PR agency. Well, but this is for us small businesses who are going to do some of this stuff ourselves. Now, the reason why I decided to go with this specific topic is because it should be relevant to every single business in this community. And I'm also doing this right now for one of our clients, and we're really starting to make headway with it. So I'll mention them a bit, but I didn't want to show everything that I'm doing for them. So I actually started creating examples based on some stuff. So I actually got a couple of treats for you, including an AI prompt roadmap that I created that I'm going to demo here today. And then next week, we're going to be putting that into practice. Okay. So if you got a question, unmute yourself, ask a question. I'll pause every now and then to get feedback from those that are live. If you're watching this on the replay, of course, you can always type a question into the chat below the video. Tons of resources. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I'm doing now is as we're gaining more momentum with our frameworks here in the community, I'm going to start challenging you more. So every framework is going to have a goal. What is the goal of this month? And for this month, I want everyone that comes through this to walk away with an actual story. It doesn't have to be ready to be implemented. It doesn't have to be complete, but I want a story from you by the end of this month of these frameworks. Okay. So I want you to be able to identify your hook, craft a narrative, and target strategically what outlets should be the best outlets for you. Okay. And again, we're going to walk through this. That's what the 5 days are for. I'm going to set the stage today. The 5 days is us putting in some work. We're going to, of course, be leveraging AI because AI is our new best friend, because we're going to get there faster. And when I show you, you're going to be like, this is freaking amazing. I'm working on it for our story. And again, how is this in alignment with your overall goal? We know what our annual plan is for the year, so that our story that we're going to be crafting has to be aligned with that. So again, we're putting all that momentum in a single direction. So again, our goal for this month is everybody to walk away with their story. And you may not have fully figured out what that story is, but you might have 4 to choose from. And that's going to be our magic number, 4 and 1. Okay, we're good with that? All right, good. So let's get moving. So let's talk about the power of earned media. What does it do? One, it elevates your profile. You gain visibility through third-party coverage that reaches new audiences. And so now I'm going to give you another reason why this is important. Because if any of you that are watching has had the opportunity to go through our AI search training, which was 2 frameworks ago, we did a whole thing on making sure you're being found in AI search, ChatGPT, SearchGPT, Perplexity, Gemini. This is part of that solution. to make sure that you're being seen, and these tools can pull your brand mention, the mention of your organization, the mention of you, if you're part of that brand strategy. Okay. So this is important for numerous reasons. Of course, establishing credibility, build trust through independent media, and validate your business and what you stand for. And then, of course, the most important thing is to connect with your audience. You're going to reach these ideal customers through channels that they already trust. Okay. So why storytelling matters. So at the end of the day, it's really about a story. So it's much more than the products and services that you provide. It is the story that you tell that your products and services help solve. Okay. So it helps you stand out. Effective storytelling differentiates your business from your competitors. It captures attention of a crowded marketplace. And this is something that I'm actually looking at for another client of mine who is in the roofing industry in New Jersey. And I don't have to tell you, if you don't own a house or you've ever looked up roofing, his industry is massively dense, in regards to the amount of people that are competing for that business. So this is another situation where it could become a differentiating factor. What about what you're doing is newsworthy? Whether it's a cause that you're aligned with, whether it's the way you think. And again, we're going to get deeper into these ideas later. You can align it with trends. What are the trends that are happening in your industry? You can align it around holidays, which is a big one. Again, because these things, if you don't really think about it, could be extremely advantageous to you and your business when you're being strategic about it. And then, as always, you get to showcase your expertise, show the uniqueness and the unique solutions that you're able to provide. And again, positioning you as the industry's authority leader. All right. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do a step-by-step guide on the 5 things that we're going to focus on for the month. Each one of these that you're looking at on the screen right now represent each day that we're going to go deeper in and deeper on. So day 1, we're going to talk about defining your core message. Day 2, we're going to talk about adding supporting elements. Day 3 will be building an engaging narrative. Day 4 is validating and tailoring. And then day 5, which is where we put the rubber to the road, is finalize and prepare. Create a concise summary and gather supporting materials and start your outreach strategy. So, Laura, do you have any relationships with any media people as of right now?
I do, and they're surprisingly easy to reach, and really, I guess fewer people reach out to them than you would think, because they've always been receptive and in some cases grateful. Because like we had a review that was done in one of the local magazines. And so I sent flowers and actually got a call back about it, because apparently nobody says thank you when they get a good review, which was shocking to me.
Okay, nice. Now you said a review, so that's a little bit different, right? I mean, right. So you got a review by who?
The food writer for one of the magazines.
Okay, gotcha. Perfect. And Chris is new to the community. And Chris, you have a really great background because you're in the nonprofit space. So do you, and based on your bio, I would assume that you've probably dealt to some degree with media.
Yeah. I've had a pretty extensive experience with media, most of it in that nonprofit space, which is still the space I'm in. So yeah, I have some great connections across 3 or 4 different states because of the work I've done in the past. So yeah.
And so since you two are live, I'm going to give you a chance to let the audience know that's watching the replay, because this is what happens when you don't show up live. Tell me a little bit about you, Chris, and then Laura, I want you to do the same thing.
So I spent about 35 years in the nonprofit space, mostly all of it in fundraising, most of that in planned giving. So charitable estate planning, wills, trusts, annuities, that kind of stuff. Through most of that time, I also did consulting on the side. I retired about 3 years ago, started consulting full time. And I've moved into training in fractional work. So I work with small to mid-sized nonprofits who need plan giving staff, but don't need a full-time plan giving staff. And so we come in to do that laser focused work that otherwise gets kicked down the road because it's not urgent, right? It's necessary, but not urgent. And so we come in to provide that laser focus and years of experience that most of these nonprofits couldn't even come close to affording at a fraction of that cost. So that's what I do, and what the 4 people that are part of my group do.
Wow, amazing. And Laura.
Okay, first, Chris, that is amazing. For me, I started the catering company in 2011, so we're getting ready to hit a pretty big milestone. And we focus on the Houston area, although we do cover Southeast Texas. And we've done events as small as 2 and up to 7,500. So we really focus on seasonal custom menus and adding a full package so that people only have to deal with one vendor and we handle the rest of it for them.
Absolutely great. So 2 incredible businesses. You both are extremely dialed in and primed for what we're going to talk about today. And I think, again, everyone is. It's just about really tapping into that next level of what can we do. So I'm going to go ahead and move into step 1. But before I do that, I'm going to talk to you real quick about what really became the crux of this month's framework. So as I'm working with my client, they're also in the event hospitality industry. I said, look, we need to find something that is newsworthy in a way that people are going to really get excited about working with you beyond just getting a mention, even if it's a mention in Entrepreneur or some big fancy magazine. It's like, how do we create something that has legs and has a beginning, a middle, and an end? So when we started creating the story ideas, we actually came up with 4, and we actually had AI's help with that. And what we noticed is, there's many ways you can take these stories. And so the key question is, what can I do with these stories beyond the obvious? And 2 of the stories were really about the trends of the industry and how they are positioned in that industry as a leader. And the other 2 were community-based. And at that point, it required more resources, meaning it could require a bit of a financial commitment. It required partnering with other organizations to help make that come together. And one of those key organizations, especially for a community-based thing, is nonprofits. But the difference between being featured in a magazine around something that you may have created that is innovative, something that might be timely because of what's going on in the news, versus something that is community-based, is that first one is sometimes only a one-shot deal. A community-based one has the ability, especially if it's based around, say, an event, has the ability to have a pre-launch stage, and then the event stage itself, and then at the end, a post-launch. And that's what made it different. I mean, that's what makes it unique. And we actually presented it to their team for stories on this past Tuesday as of this recording. And they wanted to know, we're trying to get buy-in because we need everybody's support on this, no matter what position they play in the company. And so it was like, here's the 4 ideas. Here's the benefits of each. Here's why one might be more of a lift, but might be worth the lift, might be worth more than that. And now they're actually leaning towards working harder because the payoff is higher. So this is exciting when you're able to explain it that way and let them know it has a longer shelf life. Okay. So now let's talk about this. Define your story's core message, which can include, a central message. What do you want the audience to remember? What are the achievements? What's the innovation? What's the community impact? And then the timeline and relevance, connecting to current events. Are we looking at industry trends? Are we looking at seasonal topics? What makes the story newsworthy? So I'll go back. So I'll explain the 4 things that we did. One was about, them being in the event industry. They do pretty big events for some big, they have corporate clients, they have major college clients, and then they have the social client base as well. So they do social events. So 2 of them were based on, I said, what are we trying to sell? So here's the key thing. What do we want to tie it back to? What's the service? Of course, we're not trying to push the service first, but at the end of the day, we still have to make $1. So what are we tying this back to? That should be obvious for anybody that interacts with this story. And so they're like, we like to get more into the corporate, and we like to get more clients in regards to the college market. I say, all right, well, we pick one or the other. And so what happens is 2 stories were really about trends and how they are ahead of that trend. And let's just say one was about how these big corporations are really trying to figure out better ways to engage their employees beyond them sitting behind a desk. So creating events that are very useful and memorable and have an impact on them. So we position them for that story. So very straight and dry. We need to find the right reporters or news outlets or industry outlets that would be relevant to that story. So we had 2 of them like that. The other 2 were based on holidays. One was based on Halloween, and the other one was based on Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. You got it. We got you in that. Okay. So, and they were like, well, what's the difference? I go, these 2 are going to take some work. Because, they're into fabrication of stuff. They're into doing events, providing DJs, MCs, dancers, and of course, furniture, lounge furniture. So I pitched my idea was, look, we need to partner with a nonprofit that, and I go, the angle is, I know growing up as a kid, and this is where it could become personal to you. I was never invited to a fancy party. I didn't have friends that were fancy enough to have a fancy party. So if it wasn't for the trajectory I took, I probably still never would have ever been to a fancy party. So how many other people are like that? So I said, let's do something where they get a chance to experience the fancy life. We target it towards, underserved communities that might not be in those circles and whatnot. And we partner with a nonprofit that has those relationships. And we set the stage for this, become this star for the night or something. We're still working out the ideas, but you get the point, is we're going to really pamper them and show them what it could be like. Of course, there are other things that can happen because of that, but that's the gist of it. The other one came from one of the other marketing guys, and he was like, what if we did something on Halloween where, sometimes it can be unsafe in certain areas to go trick-or-treating. So we fabricated an entire place where they can actually go trick-or-treating. Now, and he goes, and I love to partner with Habitat for Humanity because I actually have a contact there. And what does Habitat for Humanity do? Well, they build stuff. They build homes. So now we do the entertainment. They do the building of the home. Now, again, that's a huge undertaking. So what we decided to do was I said, look, right now we're in June. I go, October is too close and it's going to require a lot of logistics. I said, let's look at doing 2 things. One, let's do the Christmas one because that's easy to pull off. We do that in our sleep and we already have the relationships for venues, for food, for this, for that, for this. I go, let's do that for this year, 2025, and start planning now to do the other one in 2026 of October. So that gives us, I go, now we have 2 really big stories in addition to everything else that we can start to integrate into our system. So we have time to plan and we're not stressed and worked out. And so this is where the timeliness, the relevance, the focused approach and that we have. And so this is exciting. So let me pause for a second because I know I said a lot. Laura or Chris, what are your thoughts?
I love both of those, and you and I talked about them a little bit, and so I'm thinking of the events that we've got coming up that might be good tie-ins similar to that one. So that's super exciting. That's going to be a game changer. And like when you're talking about what to call the holiday party one, it's like something about time of your life.
Absolutely, something to that effect. So it's something that they are experiencing and going, I never knew this was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of anytime you can tie into existing traction. So rather than trying to create the event, or rather than trying to create the holiday, rather than trying to create the notoriety, tie into what's already being talked about and done, and show your own personal twist on it. So that's, to me, it's a brilliant and completely logical segue into what they're trying to accomplish. And it's got my mind spinning about how do I work it into some things that are naturally part of the calendar. What do they look like for me and my work?
Absolutely. And the same with me. So now I'm already going, because I'm like, wait a minute, why am I not doing this for moving forward small business? you know, and so this is where you're like, holy crap, this is actually really, really cool. So let's keep going. So once we've kind of started to nail down that story concept idea, now it's about adding supporting elements. And so we're talking about visual components. Now this is where, so if we look at what Chris said, what have we already done? What things have already transpired? So we've already, most of us in this community are already in business. So you've already done something. Now you need to look at it from a standpoint to go, there's actually more legs to this than I realized. So now you're looking at photos and videos of things you might have done, what was memorable, and what could you now take it to the next level. You're thinking about those partnerships, and everybody here on this call knows I'm all about my strategic partnerships. So who do we have in our system that could actually be a great partner for doing something? So again, of course, this brings down the cost of producing it, and it also increases the resources that you have to pull it off. Okay, especially if it's around a common thing that everybody goes, this is worth it, whether I get paid up front or not. Of course, I'm a big data and results guy. Is there something that we can prove there, for measurable results or measurable outcomes, whether it was something that wasn't exactly what we're planning on doing, but it has that feel. And here's what that data showed us as far as the value add for any and everybody involved. And of course, the human interest. And so this was a key when I had the call because most of the people that at the company I'm talking about, they're not used to this type of stuff. They're now in a position where they're realizing we have to think differently to outdo our competitors. So that's why I was brought on board. They're like, we need fresh ideas, but we need something that aligns, and we need something that's not going to take up so much of our time. We can't do business. And I'm talking about in general, as far as a marketing strategy. Marketing can be very intense and use a lot of your resources. So I said to them again, I go, look, we can do 1 or 3, which are really focused on the expertise of the business. But again, we're going to pour a lot of resources in something that only has a one-hit bang. Or we can add that personal element, tie in emotion, tie in the support of the community. It's a bit of a heavier lift, but that human interest, because think about this. Now you start thinking about the spinoffs, and let's just take the event, for example. Now you're going to be able to integrate user-generated content. You're going to be able to leverage things like hashtags and get people to start upload. Imagine if you had that holiday event or that Halloween event, and everybody started taking their photos and this and that and tagging the company back in it, tagging the nonprofit. You have virability there. You ain't getting that with just getting featured in Forbes. It's great. Believe me, I've been featured in Forbes, and I promote it when it makes sense, but there's no more legs to it. So this is where you're looking at these supporting elements. And then the next step is build a clear narrative. Find that strong hook. Start with a surprising statistic, an intriguing question, or an engaging fact. Background content. Explain the challenge or opportunity that sparked your initiative. Okay. So let's just say, for instance, like we presented these 4 stories on Tuesday of next week. They're supposed to be mulling over now. They need to give me an answer on which one of the 4 we go with. And my next job is to go, who has a personal story they can share about this topic? And if someone does, well, there becomes part of that background, and they might even become one of the main leaders because it is now officially a passionate to them. Okay. Unique solution. Present your business's innovative approach or distinctive offer. Okay. And so this can come in many forms because, of course, you don't want to come in and seem like all you care about is making a sale. Again, they say if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. Well, this would be the same thing from I love selling this, but I'm not really selling it. It's selling itself. Okay. So, and then what's the outcome and what does the future look like? Conclude with measurable results and what's next for the business. How does the business benefit? Because the business still has to benefit. The next stage is to validate and tailor your pitch. And that's kind of what I've been talking about. Gathering feedback. Get it from the key colleagues, your stakeholders who has to buy into this. Because if you don't get buy-in at the earliest stage possible, it's going to be hard to keep the project on task, keep the project moving forward. And that's why we developed just a rough outline. And we even told them, these are just rough ideas of the titles. What we're interested in is the buy-in of the concept. And then I said, they go, well, what's next after we choose the concept? I go, then we go back and we finalize, we put more resources, meaning our time, into developing the concept. And then we're going to present it again and then get everybody's feedback. So we're not ever creating in a vacuum, so, and then of course, do we have testimonials that can support some of the things we're doing? We need to prepare materials. And again, if you've already done something similar, well, you're going to have things. And I've done this many times when I'm pitching stuff. I'll go, here's an example of an event I did. It's not like the event I want to do, but you can still see the interaction. You can still see the excitement on people's face. You can see the responses that they got from it. So this can represent. So it doesn't have to necessarily be the actual materials. It could be the materials that would be similar to, so they get an idea. Because some people are visual creatures, and some people are the other half. I don't know what the other half. I'm a visual guy. So, and then research media. Study the outlets. And I got a really great tool for you that I'm going to show at the end that you're going to be able to use, that I will be using for that specific client that I'm referring to, and even for moving forward small business. And then the final step, and this will be day 5, is to write a concise summary. And so when I'm talking about writing a concise summary, well, we've already done the work, and we already have our draft. We've already have our 4 draft outlines, and we've picked one. So now we've modified it, made some major adjustments to it, and now we should be able to write enough of a pitch to start, our outreach. Crafting that subject line. What's going to be that thing that's going to grab the attention of the people that you're trying to reach out to? You're going to create a targeted media list, and then you're going to practice delivery, especially if this is your first time doing something like that. One thing I did with another client of mine is we created some outreach templates for him for his mailing list for people who were clicking through on some of the campaigns he was working on. So I crafted some emails for him. I crafted a pitch for him if they answered the phone or if they went to voicemail. And then I said, let's schedule a call together and you're going to practice on me. Because I don't want you to sound like you're reading. So you need to internalize this. You can still modify it and on the fly, but that first 2 or 3 times can be a little rough. And, I don't want you to stumble on that and then make a bad impression. Okay. So final thoughts, highlight the uniquenesses, showcase what makes your business special, invest time. And then, again, this is where we're looking at. I talked to you about this client. The first one is going to be in December. It's a lighter lift. It's still an event, but it shouldn't be anything that we don't do when you do 2 to 3 events every weekend. The second one is the one that's going to take time because now you're talking about fabricating a damn town. Well, that one is going to need a little bit more love, time, and energy. And it just so happened to work out. I was like, wow, this would be a great back-to-back scenario, which of course is not necessarily back-to-back. It's just back-to-back because we're going to do this one first and that one second. And then how does it drive growth? So here's a few real-world examples. Okay. So one, this is just like, and these are very simple scenarios. So this guy is a chef. So It was a pandemic. So Chef Lucas, furloughed by the pandemic, launched a personal chef service from his small apartment. Here's the resilience. So it's a resilient story. His journey highlights adaptability during crisis and entrepreneurial spirit. So there's the tag that someone might want to write about. Okay. And then the media appeal, this pandemic pivot narrative resonates with local news outlets seeking inspiring community stories. Very simple. So it doesn't have to be rocket science. You don't have to do what I just described, because what I just described is a little nuts. And because I am a little nuts. So, but you start where you need to start. Okay. Here's the second one. Small Business Saturday. I'm all about Small Business Saturday. So now this is one tapping into a trend. This is Small Business Saturday for those in the United States is usually that third week, possibly of November, I believe. So it's an annual thing. So it's so it's the fourth week because it's after Thanksgiving. News outlets feature small local businesses. So this is your chance to start building relationships. So and sharing updates of what you're doing. And then we have local focus stories, highlight economic impact, unique offerings, or personal journeys. So it has to be not self-serving. And the media coverage is news medias create segments on special shops or interview owners. So this makes me immediately think, just like Chris was saying, he's already thinking about stuff. I need to get ahead of Small Business Saturdays. I mean, for God's sake, the name of my company is called Moving Forward Small Business. So I need to plan now, so I am prepared for that. And maybe I pitch a story on how I can bring together a series of small businesses who have won over the last 12 months, making it easier for the writer, the news reporter. How do I make their job easier? And then, of course, recurring cycle. Now, and if you can position yourself as a reliable source, now eventually you're just going to be in their Rolodex instead of vice versa. Okay. Another one, unique or niche businesses. What's the unique appeal of your business? Is it a unusual product? Did you innovate a product? Are you a quirky owner with some crazy personality? Do you show up at events dressed like a clown? I don't know. I have a nonprofit colleague that we do a little work for here and there, and her thing is around pajamas. Everywhere she goes, I don't care if it's a business meeting or a business trip, she's 9 times out of 10 wearing pajamas. And she gets covered a lot. Okay. Not that you have to go and do something like that. But again, if that's part of your MO, are you leveraging it correctly? Okay. So the media segment could be around, the hidden gems, local charms. I always say that moving forward, small business is still the best kept secret for small business growth. So that's something I could use to pitch to the media. But again, it doesn't mean they're going to pick it up if you don't pitch. The key here is, are you following them? Are you seeing what stories they cover? Did they write something at some period of time that is relevant to that you could tap into and use that as a starter point for communication? Okay. Content versatility. Again, the reason why I like this, it could work on digital, it could work on print, it could work on broadcast. So you're building these things out. So news programs, specifically local ones, seek out businesses with distinctive concepts or rare skills that for their offbeat segments. So I've done interview last year. I did a 3-part discussion with a TV news producer and a radio personality that feature and focus on small businesses. So that interview is actually on the replay page if you scroll down. And then I also did a podcast episode with the TV news producer. And the whole focus of both conversations is what they look for from a small business in order for that to determine, is that small business newsworthy? So they're giving you the insight. So again, this is a very important topic to me, because if you can tap into that earned media, that could be one of the greatest things that you do to elevate and grow your business. Okay. So we think about community impact stories. So here's another one. So this is the one that I'm focused on for a good majority of my clients. Giving back. So when we talk about community impact stories, what's the give back? Businesses actively contributing to community needs. So depending on your business, media coverage. Again, for these events, if it's set up properly, can we get media to show up at the event? Imagine them showing up to the holiday party with 500 families who's never been to a fancy event, and they get a chance to experience this amazing once in a lifetime opportunity. Or imagine giving a bunch of kids a safe place that is over the stretch of, let's just say, a few hundred blocks. They take a big football field and they turn it into a maze that they go trick-or-treating with. Who's not going to show up for that? The media coverage, relationship building. Now you're in your element. And now it's not about the people that are there because you're dealing with someone who may not be your target audience. It's everybody else that sees it. It's the other vendors that will come out and go, hey, I should probably use you for my upcoming corporate event. My kid's sweet 16. My daughter's getting married, and and you're a DJ and this and that. So there's so many other opportunities. And now your job is to maybe, and I told them, I said, we have a salesperson there. We have a table. It's our event. And they're able to answer questions about what else do we do? How can we serve people who actually could be our client? And then, of course, that timing. So a few things to keep in mind before I open it up for more questions and I show you this template. I want to show you this AI template that we're all going to leverage is, look, key elements can be a timely hook, make your story relevant to current events or trends, a human interest, connect emotionally through personal challenges and passions, a unique selling point, differentiates you from your competitors, and community relevant, show local impact and economic contribution. Okay, so let me show you this here I developed. So we're going to take a deep look at this. It's called the Newsworthy AI Prompt Roadmap. And I'm going to show you exactly how I used it. I'm just going to do part one only to show you that anybody can do this. Okay. So before I do that, does anybody have anything they want to contribute or ask or say about what I just talked to? Because I just kind of went through quite a bit there.
Yes, I'm going to go back and talk about the Halloween one for a little bit.
Okay.
Boys and Girls Club or something like that would be a good partner to have.
Oh, absolutely.
And visibility to the target audience that you're looking for. And each one of those stands inside could be branded and sold as a sponsorship. So that's a really big opportunity there. And then they could have people passing out whatever branded swag or candy that they wanted from each of the stations.
Oh, yeah. No, believe me, they loved that one. The problem was, I said, it is June. If we want to do this right, this is not the one we start with.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
But yeah, absolutely. There's so much. And the great thing is there is so much there. There is so much there. I'm like, holy crap, how can I do that? What would that look like for moving forward small business? Again, I don't deal with kids. I'm not in the event industry for that particular things. So it may not be something that I would do. How could I do that for business owners? But yeah, for them it's perfect, which is why I said, let's focus on the holiday one for December and let's start planning that one now. Because again, yeah, you can partner with multiple nonprofits. Of course, I liked his idea with Habitat for Humanity because now you're like, we could actually go crazy on the build, and really make it more realistic than it would if we just did flat looking buildings, and then that's up to them to figure out, well, how much does Habitat for Humanity like it? And do they want to be involved? Because there's nothing wrong with a flat building if it still serves a purpose and they get a chance to do something they've never done before. Just imagine the photo ops on that would be through the roof.
Well, even Home Depot or Lowe's would be good ones to go after.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Chris, any thoughts before we move on? He might be in listen only mode at this point.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, sir. I'm just learning.
Okay. All right. So let's take a look at this prompt. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to walk you quickly through the prompt. Now, this is the actual prompt I used to build out those 4 stories. And before I say anything, now I gave you 4 stories, and it seems like you liked a couple of them. I'm assuming all of them were nice, but the 2 really stood out to you. I didn't come up with any of those ideas. That was my AI. I just modified them once it gave me the outlook. So here's the prompt. So this is just a little bit of text to kind of set you up for the prompt. I added this last minute that states might like this, what they're doing is local. What I would do is for moving forward small business, I would want it to be more national or global. So you might end up adding modifications to these prompts, depending on things that you're already predicting. Here's the outcome I want. Here's the reach I'm looking to have, which will help it determine the scope of the ideas that it's going to give you. So the first prompt is simple. Based on my website at blah, 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 www. Can you create 4 story pitch ideas that would be newsworthy for a news outlet? That's it. And I use Gemini. Now, you could use ChatGPT or whatever. I love Gemini for this. And the reason why I love Gemini so much is because this is one of the first tools I've ever used with minimum prompt, and it just crushes it. Normally, you got to prompt the hell out of a tool. And so this one here, I can give it free reign, and for some reason, it just does a really good job. So I use my prompt specifically for Gemini. So this is the first one. After it gives me 4 ideas, I'll run it back. I'll read through them, and I might like number 1, 2, and this is actually what I wrote. So that it goes, I like pitch ideas 1 and 3. Can you change pitch idea 2 based on my notes below? And then I prompted it because I like what it came up with, but I wanted it to be focused specifically in New York City, and I wanted it to be specifically for underserved families. So, because it shows a different focus point. So I said, keep what you did, but I want you to integrate this in. So and here was my notes. My company wants to make sure NYC underserved families experience the holiday spirit. Benefits can include, and the benefits was for me, benefits can include social media virality, news coverage, etc. So I wanted to integrate that back into it so it would beef it up for me so I could figure out how do I use it. And then after I got the originally it was 3 stories, but I ended up adding the 4th, and I'll show you in a minute. So originally it wasn't 4 story pitch, it was 3. Okay. After it gave me that and I go, I like this. Then my next prompt, and this is why I like Gemini, because I can keep adding, and you could do that inside of ChatGPT as well. So I didn't have to keep prompting it. I just said, based on what you just did now, these are great. Let's also list the type of partners we should seek for each idea. So I didn't ask for a specific partner. I asked for the type of partners. So then it gave me buckets of different partners I could go after. So now, again, it's giving me the ability to look at anything that I might not have thought of. Okay. And then after it did that, that's when I showed it to the internal marketing team. And then one of the guys goes, what about Halloween? So Halloween wasn't even on the table yet. I had a little pushback. I'm like, oh, Halloween, I'm not really sure. So again, I'm hating on the idea that we didn't have yet. But I said, you know what? I went back to my AI, go, let's add one more idea. And the theme being Halloween for underserved children. And he goes, because he said he has a partnership, he has a relationship with Habitat for Humanity. And I said, our nonprofit partner being Habitat for Humanity. So again, it wrapped it up, and then it did the 4th one, but it based it on everything else that I previously was prompting. So it would be right on point with the other 3. And then after that, there's the story. There's the story ideas that I ended up having ready to present to their entire company. But who do I need to please the most? The people that need to sign off, and the ones that's going to go, well, how do we make money? Those drags. So then my 5th prompt was, how do we turn these ideas into new leads for our business? Because that's going to be their question. Well, how do we make money from it? Well, what you're really saying is, how do we get leads, and so we can make some sales? So then it created a whole nother section for each one of the 4 and told us how we would make money from that. And it was on point. And then the final prompt was me going, this was the whole prompt. You can literally lift this whole thing. Great. Thank you. I compiled all the information. So I took everything and I put it into a single document. And then I asked it to chunk it down to 4 simple paragraphs per 1 paragraph per thing, so I could present that to the rest of the team. Because, of course, the document at that point was probably 6 or 7 pages long. I'm not going to present that much data because they're going to be lost and they don't really care. So I just used the tool so I could get team alignment. And that was the prompt. So what I want to show you is the first prompt only. So I took my company and I said, based on our website at Moving Forward Small Business, can you create 4 story pitch ideas that would be newsworthy? So I just used the prompt and it came up with pitch title 1, the survival kit for small businesses in a shifting economy. Local expert reveals key strategies. Then it said, here's the angle, here's the newsworthy element, and here's why it's newsworthy. And then here's the target outlet. All this on a single prompt. This is why I like Gemini. And then it did it for my pitch number 2, beyond networking, how local small businesses are building true community. And then, of course, the angle newsworthy. So it did it 4 times. Now, what I'm probably going to do, I just did this for today's call. I'm going to more or less update it, because I want a national approach, because it's very focused on local. Maybe I'll do local first, build up the momentum, and then launch a national campaign. That's something I got to think about. How does that align with my 1, my overall business strategy, and 2, do I have certain connections that could allow me to immediately jump into that national stage, or do I start local? So the smart person in me is going, do it local. Make it easier yourself. Again, the smart person in me. I'm not saying he's the one that's going to make the decision. Okay. So that was, and so now I could go with steps. I can go back and get part 2 if I like the concepts and the ideas. Now, just to show you how powerful this is, I did a search today for a local thrift store. So I'm like, I want the most obscure thing I could ever think of. And this page came up first. It came up in the search as one of the top pages. This is the website, Explosive Bargains and Thrift. This is the whole page, the whole homepage. And I go, let's see how well that same prompt can do for this page. So I dropped the prompt in again, based on our website. Can you create 4 pitch stories that's newsworthy? So here's what it came up with. Story pitch 1, the tech treasure hunt, uncovering hidden gems in affordability and secondhand electronics. Why angle? Why it's newsworthy? Possible elements. Story 2, beyond the bargain, how explosive bargains foster community and creativity. Pitch story 3, the life cycle of gadgets, a deep dive into electronic resales and repair. And then 4, from closets to community, the charitable impact of secondhand electronics. Wow. Just wow. From the, I'm sorry, whoever owns this is horrible. But you can see that it is focused on video games, stereo, so tools. So it picked that up and it built stories around it. So that was absolutely amazing. All right, let me go back in. So we're about to wrap up now. So here's our resources. So I created this first Notion template. For all those that have Notion, you can just click and add it to your Notion. Remember, Notion is free. So if you get a Notion account, you can just import it in. And what that allows you to do is edit these documents. So I created the first one called Crafting a Story Pitch Idea to Gain Earned Media for Your Small Business. This is in full alignment with our 5 days of implementation that we start on Monday. If you are now watching the replays, then they're just aligned with the videos that are, of course, titled Day 1, Day 2, Day 3, Day 4, Day 5. So that's one document. The second document is as you start to outreach to media or start to think about the media you already have and you want to classify them, this is your document that you can use, which is, again, a Notion doc. if you have Notion, these forms are now fillable. I linked to I follow a young lady named Christina Davies, she's like the PR person on LinkedIn, and she's really good. I don't know her personally, but I've taken a number of her programs and classes, and she's on point. She did an article, a LinkedIn news article called "Why You Should Attend Media Networking Events Like Meet the Media, Meet the Press." So I linked to that article because I'm going to be mentioning some of the things that she mentioned in our 5 days of implementation, because she crushed it in regards to, I don't have any media relationships, I don't have any media contacts, where she literally laid out how you get them, okay? How you get them and get the respect that you need. The third one, of course, is the newsworthy AI prompt you just saw. I also mentioned that I did an interview with Neil A. Caruso and Joe Connolly. Neil Caruso is a TV news producer. So he produces news television, and one of his focuses is small business. Joe Connolly is a reporter that covers small businesses. These are people you can actually reach out to. All right. So if you watch on the replay, if you click on the link, you can watch the interview I did with him. It's an hour-long interview. And then I also had Neil on our podcast, the Impact Us All Business podcast. So I was able to dive in deeper with him. And then finally, how to meet the media. So this was the Christina Davies I linked to on that media document that I gave you access to. Okay. So I want you to read this. It's probably going to take you 3 minutes to read. Read it, because she actually threw in a couple of ideas of how to find the right media for your story. And you should do that after you've developed your story, or at least you develop the concept of your story. So with that being said, we're going to now move on to our 5 days of implementation. And day 1 will be defining your story's core message. So again, I'm going to dive deep into that template, the AI template. So I'm going to use that as part of that. Then we're going to pinpoint the supporting elements on day 2. Day 3, we're going to build your narrative structure. Day 4, we're going to validate and strengthen your story idea. And so what that means is, even if you're a solopreneur, you should have people that you can reach out to, whether maybe you're part of a peer group. If you're part of an accountability group or something like that, go to them and say, hey, I'd love to pitch my 4 story ideas. Which one do you guys like? I don't want just very basic yes or no answers. I want some insight. Why you think it's a great thing, why you think it's not a great thing. And then day 5, finalize and prepare for development. And that becomes our 5 days of implementation. And this concludes our live call about, crafting a story pitch idea to gain earned media. This is something I want you to take to heart. And if you can do something that's more community-based, that has longer legs, it's going to require a little bit more from you. I promise you it's going to be worth it at the end, because you're going to build something that's going to have a lot of community support. And as a small business, this could be a huge competitive advantage and differentiating factor for your organization against your competitors. Massive. I'm excited. I can't wait to initiate it with us, just like we're initiating it for our clients. So with that being said, the Moving Forward Small Business Mandalorian way is you stay active, stay focused, stay strong. That is the Moving Forward Small Business way. So with that being said, I'm going to pull my slide back down. But before I do that, again, there's the deck. You always have access to the deck. There are all the resources. I literally just went down. The only thing missing is this video, unless, of course, you're watching the replay. The video is here. So there. Anyway, let's stop sharing and let's get any final insight from those that showed up live. What are you thinking? Talk to me.
Jimmy, this has been fantastic. Thank you. I was paying attention and looking at it and thinking about how I can tie it in with messages with a couple of events that I know are happening quickly within the next months, that are smaller steps to get, build that kind of success that I'm looking for, and a couple of leads that I have. So I'm excited to make this happen very quickly. So I'm imagining at the end of this week, I very much want the implementation to be ready to push go. So
absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for that. And again, this is what's great. So Chris has ideas of events that are already happening. So as you're prompting, I do this all the time. I'll go, here's the event that I'm actually going to be doing some stuff with. Align what I'd like to pitch with this event, and let the AI tool wrap your idea around an event, which makes it easier for buy-in. And I talk about this a lot with partnerships. People spend all day trying to go to Nike to pitch some idea instead of looking at what Nike's already investing in and then figuring out how I align with that so you can continue the momentum and support them on their journey.
That's right. What's in it for me? Never forget that.
That's the radio station, WIIFM.
I'm more of a WINO, wino radio, but that's completely different.
Absolutely. Laura.
I can't top that. I mean, he's funny, and he fits right in, so it's going to be great. We have an event coming up in September that I think would be a good one, but like you, I love Gemini, so I'm going to run it through that first and see, and then if I'm not happy with any of those four, I'll add in my other one, and I'm sure we'll talk about them next week.
Absolutely. And again, so yeah, and for anybody watching the replay, let's say you're not ready for this. That's fine. But understand, do it anyway, because you're going to be extremely surprised what it comes up with. And you're going to go, I could actually do that. Or it spurs you to go, I actually have, the business across the street from me would be a great business to partner with to do this. The objective is we're creating something new. So it's not supposed to be something we already know or we'd already know it. So this is the beauty of it, to come up with something great. And again, if you feed it in stuff that's already going on, it should make it easier to go, how do I get more out of this thing that's already happening? So thank you. Any final words, either one of you? Okay, so fantastic. So for those who didn't show up, hopefully you watch this replay before we go to the live call. I mean, on day one, we're going to roll up our sleeves, and we're going to come out on day 5 with something, and that you can be. And again, don't let this overwhelm you. If anything, just come up with a story idea. That's all I want you to do. For those that might go, this seems a little much, just come up with a story idea. And for us, with this particular company, the first one's not going to happen for 8 months, and the other one is 17 months away. So it's not like I'm going to do them tomorrow. So keep those in mind. I'm just trying to coax you, but I'm not going to cuddle you. With that being said, enjoy your time, and I look forward to seeing all of you on day 1.
Have a great weekend. I'll see you both on Monday.
Take care.
Take care.
See you Monday.
Bye.